Okay, I'm trying something new today. I really have been wanting to do a book with a group on Facebook Lives to really get a discussion going so that women can feel more prepared or find some reasoning maybe behind feeling stuck in the workplace. So I want to use my notes here from my computer, from my laptop, to make sure that I get to every single point. I spent some good amount of time on preparing for you for this topic for today regarding this book, and so I really want to make sure I get everything in. So first of all, let me start off by saying I I am so thankful that you're here. Anybody that's able to hop on live, fantastic. I'd love for you to type a message that you're here live. Most people, though, are going to find this on the replay. And so I really welcome you in joining me. And so if you're here from the replay, type replay in there for me. Just kind of helps to kind of get a gauge on when the best time is that people will be hopping on, because if a better time is at a different time, then that's what we can do. So if you don't know me, my name is Princella Stringer, and I'm a life and women's empowerment coach. And I work with women here locally, but I also work with women in other parts of the U.S. Online. Matter of fact, that works really well working with women online, because we have some distance and space between us where we can really open up the floodgates of truth and transparency as my client is walking through whatever she's walking through. But anyway, I'm happy that you're here. I'm excited that you're here, and welcome. So as a coach, I help women claim their power. And this is so valuable and important to me. And it's something that I have worked through myself in claiming my power. This is why I'm so passionate about working with women in this spectrum in this realm. And so along with coaching, I also wanted to share with you that I have a brand new Facebook page. It's called We Are Limitless Network. We Are Limitless Network, which stands for Women Empowered Are Limitless. And so I want to invite you to that page also. And as a matter of fact, I would love to be able to transfer this live over to that group, because that group is a private group where only certain people will see the postings there. Because the discussions that we'll be having about this book, How Women Rise, can get very deep and very personal. And so I want to create a space where you can really share what's on your mind without worrying about somebody finding it on the World Wide Web. So now the other thing I wanted to say, that that Facebook group, we put it together so that women can tackle their biggest issues they're living with, they're having with living an authentic life, personally and professionally. Very interesting in reading this book. I heard what the author's thoughts were on the personal professional dynamic and what they found in the working place and working with their clients. So today, right now, we are going to talk about the book, How Women Rise. The book was written, I took off my cover because it gets a little messy, but the book was written by Sally Helgensen and Marshall Goldsmith. Now, these two came together to write this book together because Marshall Goldsmith actually wrote a book quite a few years ago called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I read that book at that time. It was hugely helpful. But the thing that I found, that there were some things in there that I just couldn't relate to as a woman in the workplace. And that's really interesting, some odd years later, that the two of these come together, Sally and Marshall come together to write this book, because it's a similar topic. However, it's geared toward women. And so anyways, I'll get into those. But what I want to tell you right now is that if you've ever felt like you deserve a promotion and a higher salary, and you're not sure why you haven't been able to get that into your own life and have that come true for you, or you feel like other people in your life are getting in your way from finding success. Maybe even you're sabotaging your own success. I hate to admit it, but I was there before too. I would sabotage my own success. And so we want to blame someone else, or we don't want to recognize how we're sabotaging our own success. If you've ever felt that way, then this is what this live is all about, in digging deeper into this book. So I'm going to cover part 1 right now. I'll cover part 1, and that one is called Being Stuck. It's the first section to start off with, all about being stuck. So, and the authors point out things that they noticed with their clients, and they also point out what they've started to recognize by surveying people and finding out about their experiences in the workplace. So that is how this information came to be in this book. So before I get into my talking points, I want to share a couple of personal stories with you. These were certainly not by any means the things that, they weren't huge catastrophic moments in my work history, but I'll tell you what they did do. They shifted my thinking in my role and in my participation in the workplace. You know, so I want to share these stories with you just to kind of see if they resonate with you. So when I was pretty young, in one of the first companies that I worked for, where I was really hungry for getting that promotion, really hungry for making more money. I found myself in a position as a single mom, and I knew I had to step up my game in earning a higher position where I worked. So I interviewed, I finally nailed this job where I had like a $15,000 pay increase due to me getting my degree and just going for it, right? So it was the first time I actually negotiated my salary. Woo, the first time you do that feels amazing, right? Ladies out there, you know what that's like. So as a matter of fact, if you remember what that feeling was like, I want you to put a little note in the comments here and just share how amazing that feels when you've negotiated your salary and have gotten to another level of income because you decided to ask for it, right? So anyway, so I get this job, and this was also my first experience with a female boss that could not stand me. At that time, I was clueless. I didn't know. I took it personally, like it was something that I did. Was it the way I was hired? Was it the way I looked? Was it something I said? Did I say something inappropriate or against her? I had no idea, but I took it very personally. This was my biggest takeaway in that situation. The biggest takeaway was that I learned how important it is to understand her side of the story. She was my boss, yes. And even with a peer, when we have a peer that for some reason we're just kind of button heads and we don't know each other very well, so we haven't taken our relationship to the next level of trust, that experience taught me to understand where she's coming from, to get some clarity on her journey and her story. I never asked how she got to where she was. I never asked, you know, how her day was and if she enjoyed working where she was, or if she had other goals and plans. You know, we can ask these questions in a discreet way that are just inviting the conversation and getting to know each other better. Huge learning lesson for me. Difficult transition to go through, but that was my biggest takeaway from that. I have 2 more stories for you that I think are really important to setting up the tone and the pace for what we're going to talk about today. The other thing is that I found out about 10 years ago, I was in a meeting, and I just shared a story with you that I had, an experience that I had with a woman, a female boss. And in that experience, I should tell you that many times I had times where we were in meetings and she would just talk right over me, and it didn't allow me to speak up and speak out. She looked at me like she had daggers in her eyes. It was not fun, not a pretty story. So my story number 2 is actually about 2 men, 2 strong, powerful men that were higher up in position. And the huge lesson that I had there was that these things happen between men as well, between 2 men. I always felt like because I was a woman, because I was relatively shy, I was very shy as a youth, and then as an adult, it took me a long time to break out of my shyness. I thought it was me. I wasn't speaking up enough. I wasn't being loud enough. I wasn't being clear enough. Huge light bulb moment was when I saw this interaction happen between 2 men. Didn't expect it. And so all that to say, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, understanding where someone's perspective is, and also getting clarity on my own perspective and my space and your space in the workplace, your voice in the workplace is huge. That perspective is huge on how you respond and react to these situations. So if you have a personal story of either a boss that you just couldn't find the connection with, put that story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you on what you learned from that situation. What is something that you took away that became invaluable to you in your growth professionally? So another thing that one more story I want to share with you about just understanding someone else's perspective. I was in a situation where I really wanted to introduce my husband at the time to this individual. I thought it would be mutually beneficial, and it was really a big deal for me to step out of my comfort zone and introduce 2 people that I thought could have a really good relationship going forward. And so I go to step up and command the space and share my thoughts and introduce these 2 individuals. And in my mind, it played out great. Have you ever been there? In your mind, it plays out like beautifully. And so I get into this situation and flop. The conversation didn't go well. I fumbled over my words. I felt like a huge idiot. I was still really shy, so I was like getting red and, like I said, fumbling over my words and stuttering. It was not pretty. So I go to a friend of mine and I tell her what happened. And she says, wait a minute, who did you say this was with? And I tell her the name of the person. And this person, hugely successful entrepreneur, dresses to the nines, really sharp, really great looking, always comes across very, very confident. But there was another side to that story. So my friend says to me, who was it that you're referring to? And I tell her, and she says, Princella, he deals with the same exact thing. Fear of confronting people, fear of speaking his opinion, fear of sharing thoughts. And my mind was blown. Here's a person that puts on this persona of really having it together, but was struggling big time. So here's what I learned in that. We all struggle from time to time. We all battle with our own dialogue going on in our mind. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I going to say the right thing? Do I have something in my teeth? We go through these things. There are stages in our life where we will go through those things, and then there's a stage where we start to understand that this is the human experience. This is the human experience. So what are we going to do with this human experience? Are we going to try to love and understand each other, or are we going to continue with the battle? So I feel like this book helps us as women gain some clarity on these subjects, helps us understand what is our place, what is our role, what are our goals, what are our ambitions in the workplace, right? So I hope those stories are helpful. And if you have any stories similar, I'd love to hear from you Like I said, a story that maybe helped you recognize or form who you are professionally. How did it shape you? And I'm sure that many of us reading your story can glean something from that. So please do share. So on to part 1. I've been talking so much, I'm like dry mouthed right now at this point. So I'll take a drink of my water. But I want to get into this part 1 on being stuck. The first point they talk about is knowing where we're coming from. Where as women are we coming from that shaped who we are professionally? So think about that for just a minute. Where are we coming from? So I wanted to point out that in this section here, the author Marshall Goldsmith, he points out some points that he learned in working with women, working with men, and then also surveying them, as I mentioned earlier. And Marshall found that his experience in coaching high-level female executives and working with men, of course, executive men, he finally saw a huge mindset difference between the female and the male professionals that he worked with. And working with these professionals, in working with them, he would always conduct a 360-degree feedback process so that he can learn what are the peers and what are the workers, co-workers and subordinates, what are they saying, what are they thinking about these individuals that he's working with, right? So he would conduct the survey, and something happened distinctly different between how almost all of the women that he worked with and the men that he worked with. So I want to read something from the book here. Okay, let's see here. What page is this? Okay. Page 7, if you have this book, I'm going to refer to page 7 here right now. So, not surprisingly, the feedback for Frances, which is the woman that he worked with, was incredibly positive. However, when she saw it, her immediate response was, I have so many things I need to improve. I need to improve. It was overwhelmingly positive, but Frances chose to focus on the seemingly negative and said, I have so many things that I need to improve. She began listing about 27 things she wanted to get to work on right away while working with Marshall. And so he goes on to say that he was impressed by her dedication. He was surprised that a person of her stature would be so self-critical. So on the flip side, he talks about what happens when a man was given the results of his 360-degree feedback. And he, unfortunately, Marshall was aware of too many men who responded to negative results by saying, if I'm so terrible, why am I the most successful guy here? I've made this company millions of dollars, and you're telling me that I need to change? This was the typical response that he had from his male clients, his professional male clients. And I found this really interesting, and I also found this as a pattern that I've experienced myself. I go right to the negative. I go right to the negative, and I want to just like drill down and see all the things that I need to work on versus looking at the positives and what I did contribute really well and really strong. So that is the first section here, where we're coming from. So in that, I want you to think about, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from, and where does this mindset resonate with you? Is it a pattern that you've fallen into and that you want to rectify? So then on that note, we're going to look at number 2, where you are now. Where you are now. So when you're looking at where you are now, I want to read this section here in the book on page 11 and ask you a couple of these questions. Where are you right now in your work and your career? Are you in a place that feels satisfying and gives scope to your talents? Are you in a place that feels satisfying and gives scope to your talents? Are your talents being utilized in the position that you are right now? Are you valued not just for your contribution, but also for your potential? Are your upper level management recognizing the potential that you bring to the table? Do you feel your work is leading to a place that will satisfy your ambitions and help you make a difference, the difference that you want to make in the world? As a life coach, one of my personal goals is to really serve young moms and single moms. I feel like this will impact the world. I feel so strongly about this. But I want you to remember that you don't have to be a life coach to impact others. You impact others in your work environment. You impact your peers, your boss. You can have an influence and impact on your boss, helping them to be a better boss and you a better employee or a better future boss, or a better boss now if you're currently a boss. So thinking about, does your job scope right now satisfy you on that level? So I want to invite you to think about that and see what is your answer. You know, is it the right place for you? So where are you now, and what are you hoping to achieve where you are now, and what are you hoping it will help lift you up to for the future? So the other thing that I wanted to say too is that so many of us want to separate the personal and the professional. This is why I take notes, because I forgot about this point that I wanted to make. So many of us separate the personal and the professional. I went through a long period of time where I struggled to definitively be one way here, one way there, you know, to make a decision of who I am professionally, who am I personally. And I started to realize that that's just not me. It is my nature to be who I am at work, be who I am at church, be who I am with my friends. That was a desire that I had for a long time, but I didn't know how to get myself to that place, to be authentically me, unapologetically me. It's a journey sometimes for some of us to get to that place, but it's a crucial development, personal and professional development, when you can do this for yourself. And this is why I'm so passionate about doing this work with women today. We cannot be blind to who we are personally and professionally. We cannot be blind to the things that are happening and occurring in both of those scales that hold us back from achieving the goals that we have set for ourselves. So again, where are you? So yes, we're talking about the position and the role. How does it serve you for the future? But where are you now personally in your habits, in your outlook, in your, what did I say in my notes here? Behaviors, your behaviors. Where are you in those elements, and what are some things that you'd like to work on to continue to develop so that you can be at a higher level personally and professionally? So consider this. How do you define success? What habits do you have that are holding you back? What behaviors do you have that are on autopilot? You automatically do them, and you know it's something that you need to change. I'm going to give you a really simple example here. In my past life, I've been known to do this from time to time, now even, but not on a professional scale and not for things that I feel are really significantly important. But in my past life, I used to be late for everything. My family used to tell me that if an event, if they were having a birthday party at 6:30, they knew to tell me that it was at 5:30, 5:30 or 6, so that I would get there on time. How sad is that? I came to realize that this was not serving me well by a boss that cared enough to tell me, Princella, you have so much potential. You could be really great at this. And how would you feel if the one thing holding you back was your tardiness? Wow. Thank God he told me that, because it would have taken me much longer to realize it on my own. Of course, I was a teenager at the time, but he did. He told me, and it helped me form the kind of professional that I want to be. And little small example, but think of it for yourself. What habits do you have that are on autopilot that you feel like it's just the way you are? It's just the way I am. I'm always late for things. It's not that big of a deal. It's just the way I am. People have to take me or leave me. But is it holding you back from success? I don't eat well. I end up having headaches by eating too much sugar. But I love sweets. So I just have to, you're not, if it's inhibiting where you can be, which, this circumstance will, you've got to break the habit of eating the sweets. What can you think of right now is something that you would love to change about yourself, but you feel like it's a habit you cannot change? You feel like it's an autopilot thing that you don't have the energy to change, you don't know how to change, you've tried to change it millions of times before and it never works. But if it's in the way of your success, we need to talk about that. So if you've got a habit that gets in the way of your success, put the note in the comments. Okay, so now the final point is, what happens when women resist change? What happens when women resist change? Now, we all do this. Now, you've probably heard this before, but if you haven't, I'm going to just share with you. And if you have, you'll hear it again because it is so valuable. So our brains are not wired for risk-taking success. Whatever our brain deems as risk-taking, it's not wired for that, okay? It's not wired for entrepreneurialism. I found a whole other level of mindset blocks that I had to finding my success in what I do that I didn't even realize I had, because my brain, our brains, none of our brains were born thinking and behaving as an entrepreneur. So I had to work through those mindset blocks. Our brains are not wired to put ourselves in risky situations that put ourselves on the spot. Okay, and when you are rising the ranks at work, you will be faced with those situations more often than you're going to care to be facing them. So what does our brain automatically do? It goes into protection mode. If our brain thinks we fear something or are uncomfortable with something, our brain will automatically go into protection mode and want to protect us. There's no other way to say it. So this is something that we do naturally. The learned part of it, the good news is that this can be changed with practice and effort. Change is scary. Change is scary. I always thought I thrived on change and learning and new things, doing different things. But I also noticed that it was kind of, I thrived on different things that I felt comfortable with doing, with exploring. Put me in a situation of something that I didn't feel comfortable with. Yeah, no, I just didn't want to do it, regardless of how it could help me or serve me well in the future. We all have those stories of a certain type of change or experience that we just did not like. And it's uncomfortable and it's not fun to walk through. But when we resist change, we end up limiting our potential. and our ability to really succeed and go to the next level. So I have in my notes here something that I wanted to share with you about that, about a resistance to change. And so in Marshall Goldsmith's book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, he listed different stages for men when they're experiencing change and what they do. So these are the ones that Marshall most often sees resistance to change and how they manifest. They manifest in these 3 different types of stages. So for men, stage 1 is the person decides that whoever is suggesting the change, that he needs to be changed. He's the one that needs to change, and that person must be confused about the change. That's stage 1. Stage 2, the person begins to recognize that while the general suggestion about change might be valid, the critique, it doesn't apply to him. So yeah, others need to change, and I guess it's true for them, but I don't need to change. And if he needed to change, then why would he be so successful at what he's doing? You know, so this is the male perspective. And then stage number 3 of the male perspective of change is that the person simply attacks whoever suggests that he needs to change something about himself. And he just blames the messenger. That person is wrong. This enables him to continue buying into his own rationalities so that he doesn't have to change. This is how men would typically resist change. Again, this is what Marshall Goldsmith found in his experience with working with his clients and in surveys that they completed to get this information. So if this isn't the case for you or someone you know, just take that with a grain of salt. It's the medium of all the information they've collected. So the question became, when they did this book together, the question became is we need to ask whether this pattern of resistance is also typical among women. So this is what they found. Let me get another drink of water. For women, this is what they found. Stage 1 in their resistance to change, a woman will react to the suggestion that she needs to change by feeling discouraged or undervalued. So stage 1, I mean, we have all been there, I think. I know I've been there. As I read this, I thought to myself of situations where I felt discouraged and undervalued. It's a painful experience, and the result is a certain degree of paralysis. So this happens, and we think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I was a disappointment. And versus being able to charge ahead and ask key questions to move past it, we go into a form of mental paralysis and we don't do anything. Okay, that's stage 1. Stage 2 for women is that a woman will begin to consider why whoever offered the assessment might have made it. How did they come up with this information? How do they decide that this is the change that needs to happen from this assessment? Were there valid grounds? What are the circumstances? Did the critique have to do with her being a woman? So this is stage 2. We start to ask key questions. Is it valid? Where did the information come from? And is it because I am a woman and I'm not a man who can just charge through this situation? Okay, that's stage 2. Now, stage 3, now again, these are situations that occur when a woman is resistant to change. And again, I'm bringing up the different stage levels that women go through in their resistance to change. So stage 3 is a woman will start to examine how her own behavior played a role in shaping the perceptions that led to the critique. So immediately she looks inward and says, what did I do in this circumstance that caused this outcome? What might she have done or neglected to do? So right away we go to what did we do wrong, and analyzing what could have been done, what she could have done differently. What might she do differently? Instead of focusing on the messenger, she looks at her own actions. Okay, so in their experience, Marshall and Sally's experience in researching for this book and working with their clients, stage 1 for women is to feel discouraged and undervalued, so they internalize it negatively. Stage 2 is asking more powerful questions to kind of understand the circumstances. Where did they get this information from? Is it valid? And how did they come to this conclusion? And then stage 3 is that a woman will start analyzing what was her role in that and what could she have done differently. So you can see how all of these, most of the two, especially stage 1 and 2, we internalize it. One has a negative internalization and one has a more positive internalization. So I thought that was really, really interesting to understand the different dynamics and how men and women resist change. So I'd love to hear if you have a story about that and how you have resisted change in the past, maybe how you've done it in the past, and then maybe how you do it now in the future, or currently. How do you respond to change? So I really, really look forward to hearing how this book could be useful to you. If you have this book, let me know, and let me know how far you've gotten, if it's been helpful to you in your growth professionally and personally. So again, I really want to invite you to, on the top of my Facebook page here, on this business page, you'll go to the top and there's a button there that says join group. If you just click that button and join the other group, I'd love to be able to transition these Facebook Live sessions into a more private group. That private group, only the individuals that had been invited or had been asked to join the group can see what happens in the group. So this can be a place for you to really talk about the challenges that you're facing at work, where you can really get into some live discussions about the things that are happening in the workplace for you. All I ask is that if you submit a comment, that you please check back in so that we can continue the discussion. This is not a venting ground. This isn't somewhere where you just throw the trash in there and then leave. Participate in the group, and let's have a dialogue going on the challenges that you're facing, and let's see if we can get some advice for you, either through me or through other professional women that will get involved in this group, to learn more about other women's experiences and how it can help you. So like I said, I want to invite you to join that group so we can make this a more private setting. But I hope you can see how having these discussions can really, really help you in your journey to get ahead at work. And I also want you to recognize, too, that when you understand these elements, where you're coming from, where you are today, and maybe what you do naturally to resist change, when you recognize these things, you're owning some of your power back. If you felt like you never really had a grasp of your own personal power, this is a way to start developing that for yourself. So I want to invite you to just think about how having these discussions can really help you and serve you to be able to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Imagine what it would feel like if you no longer had to worry about what others think, and instead you could focus on your own agenda, your own goals, your own mission in the workplace, in your professional life and in your personal life. Imagine what it would feel like to own your power back personally and professionally, to be able to make decisions that were not fear-based. We're not running off of a resistance to change. We're coming from a place of understanding where you are now and where you want to be. So this group is meant to really support you in achieving those goals. So what would it be like to be able to have the discussions and get feedback from professional women, get feedback from me as a life coach, to really support you to be where you want to be? So Again, if you liked the information that I shared today, I have so much more to share with you. And I really want to invite you to go to the other Facebook page and join that group. Potentially, I'll be in this group again for the second session that we do next week, where we'll dive into part 2, and we'll get into the discussions there. And let me just read the title for you on that one. In part 2, we start talking about the habits that keep women from reaching their goals. And there are 12 habits that they talk about in this book that are extremely valuable in supporting you achieving your goals. Habit 1 is a reluctance to claim your achievements. Wow. It took me a long time to be able to boost my own capabilities up. Why? I don't know. I don't know. If you've ever struggled with that, you want to come back next week, next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or catch the replay and leave your comments in there from that. So again, on Facebook, search for We Are Limitless Network. We Are Limitless Network. And if you search for that in Facebook, then you can join the group that way. You can also go to this page at the top of the bar, and you can search, look for the join group bar, and that is linked right to this new group as well. So yeah, so like I said, the intention of that is just to be able to go deeper into these topics and really, really be able to help and support you where you are now. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for popping on. Leave a comment, leave a replay comment, or a live comment if you're joining me live. And I will see you next week, Monday. And I hope you have a great, great start to your week. So I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.